Om Ahom. Achiro Namarata, only Sunam with Joe, no Sunam with Joe, try me already. Delata, Sunam with Joe, what the Gori Jabrotan, part of Semji, Tamatan media, there was a new day, Jatang Nabasum, Tabasum was teaching the guitar. Sunam with Joe Chibo, simple roll. Did just chung chang me was on with just a hardcore. Tang so the chaptang tanga sunam roll your Hakona. Can't did it chaptang tea, some did take Rana, the talk leg at any color Saja the savage around Sunam leg at any quarter. Are you of the area? This is a chaptang the union body john roll your Thomas Ocha. So strong Chaplang Tom Morning John Doggy. They didn't see one dinner, set up they top the Tatis of the Chaplang down the Sunam, the Sunam Shilla. The Sunam John Moja. So now with John Mashila. These took a Sunam to Yonguri. Sunam to each which is Sunam the lady, just as in Jevin Jonguri. Penna Karen Jonguri. Tata, so Telepatam you call it. Ganhako your Marley. Mari, who told us sooner with you, who told people like up on what been number dozen damas all your summer. Zoma Tom, you did same to Zona, this is not sent to Agoma, so to Agor. Take a Sunam by just a Sunam could do thank you on my belly. That's what child I should have the Tana. Was it talk to go? That are the justice would do take it to summer as you. Those of Chatham did Jokaris out or Lucaris Caris out there. Tata, to sing those of what of you, but of Chakar, Lakan, just the Tata daughter, numbered Tongan daughter, Tata, and Rokoyori. So Chakashiri, the Tarang is a Gutoya job at all, Kana Meva, Tom Botobi Sadori. They have the Dashena Yan Kashi Poro. So was Senati, Nadi Chebochi, Tamchetri, or Jumtati Sopo, the Jazeti, Dome about the Rami, the Sochama was Saro, but Bakashi de Royori, the Sochatum of Dakota Sarori, the Tata, the Mayori, Yena de Sadi, these use some Tapsi, some Tapsi Koto to Hojado, this one top the dear so was so nice, later Koto, later Sanity. Don't eat it, lay some at it. Not do your later, Jumdi. Just a little devil, man, dirty, shabby charity little. That is done, but so chatty, because of Mambo Sassum. That could don't eat it. Mary caught territory, Ranker, nor did Sena keep his son, that is on Saturday. Territini, this is doing younger, Daddy, lake. They're chatting, Tilbella. Tado de la sua Trinidadi, Sena, so Senare, Senatili Sali, de Lake, this Sali, that is Sisona, Cosa Tiletan, let the Samson Tatokari, Tato Cora, and you district Yoria. This Sassaman you call it Chapel, Taco, Tapnaban Hasolatili, that's home, Georgia Lasopake, nor dated Sasai, Saulati, delay the past summer, delay the Samson, set the tire. This saved the Tarona, did it down, don't know they were talking, safety watching, Sergeant safety, call district body, reality, the Batar, district body, Jessie or Mary. Couldn't soon as the talk yori. Tiratini tati the dancing chimbo chi, the Range, the dream Michili, or Tati, later became an imitate of jail. This of jail, Utang or Margina, there is a Sakjam was the Junji was on which talk to kill him more, to weak him more, to kill him more, the most of the Simji, what you get a homer, some half on it, giving more the same more, they took each more awesome. There are more some yori. There are just about number top and that's a yori. There are get out talk yori. I'm saying, Niba, Chibo Yomari. Custom Nadagum, who are dinner. Oh, yearly dishing don't hold it. Custom Yondagum, who are awesome. Custom Yondaga thought their contact take it. The same can tell them more sorry. Die Yomari. Ranjing it. You give us on this movie. That what they tamchi the twist of the Sabbath. You be give out with it. There's still to talk authority. Round up take it. So, don't touch the of the some of the 60 of the some of the round your marry. Ramble Tadori. They will at a so. Casega there, some yori. Cashe Nambi Tower shock. Chuman Boche, Debachi Boche. They have not a good looking with Tanashi did. They are from a doctor. They say the Chipo easily. They say about Chagori. They say Nibaya, you Niba dinner. That is Manga Rangi. Sunam de Chok to worry. This one de Tokyo Mari. Loctati, the lady Loctati, something on Loctati. So they didn't that Tata Nanchi Jene, that you can't in Chibati. Ben Kangin Chiba the Nazi Jena, told the young with the leg of Sunam with National Che Young, a choke prone to say, go, Yori. Say that the limited Delapena, the Sando Yori. Ben to watch this on Sanjicus, but say the Sanji, that of the Kawaki, Toxi Dasati Kongarola. Oh, they don't give Dodge command, but the Patak Yori, number tower half on Chuka said, Nata Dominion, oh, not a race, not a saguyoresa. And then the window was only, they do the give the command inch. Oh, yeah. Dr. the vehicle. The day lord of Seva to down the Wazon, Tama, you can give your Kucha. They thought the Nabata half or something. You coyote the Javna, tell control Rama. Yeah. Tell him, Lang later called, later said, oh, Tamti say, Jesus of the Jelly, the Rancho, you are it. He don't get that young boy, say the Jesus of Rimato. Lady was doing young boy, Rangle, Dandy, the new one, did you are it? Don't eat in Jumna. Oh, indeed, Dandy, the humor ladies. You know what I think is of certain. They are to the tolerantly. Oh, some part of Nijig, Luang, they are doglorious. They are telling Popar Tabe, the Kichi. Gee, the control garden race, control some series. Sharp them some series. Sharp you something to check your or somebody Java of the sharp, Simon, oh, Java check. Oh, the Tama, go did you go? The man says they are go. So charging simply they are go. They call us some town. Oh, they have this so good, they are talking. Catching on us, don't tell them. Zong Tabi, Zong Tabar, take or not got started double Jagila. They can't talk your dinner. They have the people, they have the Judy Machine quarter, they tell everybody. Judy, she go. My cover months they was go to cemetery. This is what I'm going to subject to that. Double the cup of the summer from data. Some will check on the Cardinal Cardi check your way. Some will check on the some sort of what the Cardinal theatre, coming theatre union, to start the so. Doctor Jacat of the theatre was children, so then we just a carry, with your cage body. There is the soon with just a little children, so long with your mango career. Belete Kalatama Torado, yet is a lot of Tocha Carson. Thomas Yuri, so long you buy you more teacher, you be mango charge away, save it up. They Google top, Doug Samba tops, oh, Ragsing some Nijiki more. Yeah, the each of top them, Sanji, Tamji, some Niji, Dr. Tibotinum, the each of top more Yuri. All one what's out the serried. What's out the same city touches the sick to go? Kataki what's the rate of the soul so much. Comes around, Tongu Yayel and Rodok the sick to watch so. So, Rodok took the sick to body, or the neck of lower door. 단지 종들이 다지지 되게 대사버서 당하고 요리 대호도 참아지리 대지 뭐래 사고는 내가 당말이 따보면 나보다 하고 이제 답하래스 로버가 답하래지 다 산지 좀 이제 가면 저 레본 거래 고맙더라 강리 십지 남의 상지 용자 로버트 베드스 이 십지 뭐되고 내 저거 요리 차도 가면 요 말이 대서 내가 로버트만 단디 저바지 사치들 다 사바다 경제기 뭐고 요리 사바다 이제 셈을 지세야 돼 세대기 면거 다 무엇도 어쩌는 게 맞다나 내가 페마 요리 내가 걸 저는 요리 내가 그리고 내가 털선을 하다 매일 이 탑을 들이 이제 발라들이 로쭉 수습을들이 물론 뭐지 루바르는 또 정보 동지와 세르모 그래서 어떻게 타고요래 저밭에서 루바트는 들이 이번 니네 소를 물려야 탑지 들이 대다와지 쏘는 부절이 저발해지 들이 잡으려는 뭐지 용용마도 매바데 동대 왔다 때리 문에 삼체기 하자 용용래 뭐자 저기서 삼체로 삼체 대양들이 삼체 싸마싸마 용용을 하지 대외들이지 단디지 유모가 치고 마오래 대외 같이 망나들 잡고 또 마와 탑체는 또 속기술이 대외가 들이지 두쪽으로 마와도 또 복시지와 대다 도착해서 또 먹는 등이 속속 저래야지 대가 대다 하고 줍지 시송은 들이 직접 속고 소는 줍지 기축 삼을 소리 책지 탑지 능력이 저쪽 봐도 못없어 단디 찍고래서 단디는 유무보 독탑이로서 때부터 주니 말을 코는 유성 다주 공부하고 받아서 말이 그 못이 지정을 쉬어서 그래 때 말을 걸어도 말이 나그 세면 네 당원 사제에 봐 맛이 봐도 때 맛이 내다 다기니서 대기를 저를 달아 차 이는 담때 샘들이 자적인 창론나고 차송 다디 창론도 쇼걸 가리고 다 삼지 거고 다 주고 예체제도 자와서 줬었는데서 들이 산지 좀 되게 거기 너디 또다만 뭐시 저기 감상을 받아 따라만 뭐시네 들이 동라들이 책도 다돼 동쪽에 쭉 봐도 매서 독특히 잡는 송도 뒤에 답절이 시킬래 다 저러는데 저러 내야 예담대장장이 요 말이 추시와도 삼지를 하래 말이 삼바던 희게들이 들이 시합제고 요래 시합 가르쳐를 한 것을 내로 하고 타고 요래 뒤에다가 삼모 따로들이 모아다 모나들이 그래도 같이 통하더니 그래도 이제 통해서 그래도 대대 비우지 뭐래 내가 주도 가가다가 별로서 다다 상초체 거리 사초체 거리 쓱가라만 보사는 이 굳이 타고요래 타고요 그때 타고 말이야 야 강리 가라만 보면 살아 뒤에 속차서니 들이 속차까지 저거들 삼을 자사볼 그마사를 저저 속제지 가실 은혜들 속차 가제도 살리요래 뒤에 탑질 피바다 내가 안정 뒤에 탑질 피바다 내가 또 되게 내가 그 삼제 고소대 섭되고 자 로고자 뒤랑 그 삼제 또 되게 딱 고도 타고요래 바시 남시들 레트마도 저요 말이 먼저도 풍모송을 시골을 기상 문화들이 딱 쪼들이 라고 개사가 삼제지 섭도 고도 타고요래 삼제지 섭도 타나 빼는 삼제지 섭도 타나 다가리 고도 섭도 단지 섭도 그래 단지 섭도잖아 이 고도 상제리 이제 상제리 바비선 바비를 저도 그래 가실 카카도고 도사카카요 마이 나나들이라는들이 사제리 저도 그래 모두 게타는 봐 모두 게타 가래리 네바지레 고도 사촉서 사바다니지 사바체베 바레 스타마레스 돈다고 고도 그때 사바다니지 누나 코 돈다고 데바 하고로 돈다고 데바 하고서들이 도사제리 돈다고 데베니 다 죽거리 상제를 나기 니지메 이런 데들 니지메 이 따다다 로고다 죽거리들이 생각하면 제대 라는 것들이 똑바 고름 토미는들이 같이 쪽거리도 같이 로고도 같이 죽거리 삼지 죽거리 들때그 섭지 동시 와도 양 짜르들이 사제 좀 주면 제발 요거요래 같이 나 사제 고만 톱나요 왜 섭지 동제고를 갖고도 나 트래블 그래 우리 때도지 산제들이 코를 등에데 등에 타고 말이 예 강애들이 따라 코를 등에들이 주바다거든 코와 담이 주변람진라 담에 주바 뛰어만 지대스 메토 뿌리 소야 갈리니 탑탑 타고 봐도 답지 알아서 제가 산제들이 등에는지 대사 고소해 메토 버지 메봉나 코도이티 저거 소상이 지설이 로테나 할래 오면 제 주마타 그래서 이제 주마타 같은 데도 나무 땡기는 데 요리 데르티니 따따또 뭐지 뭐아들티 가려네 만을 저쪽도 나는 뭐지 고스 뭐지 이제 simp지는 남지 되고 그래 simp지도 동에 저 단지리스 들 가리고 미치고 내가 미치 뛰어야지 뛰어서 제설다 최소한이나 같이 삼년지 제보를 참아 수지 탐지 삼리 삼로 돈이 요리 같이 랑게 도고 도고 될라서 내가 하도 지와 제보 요리 나도 저 나도 도 나의 도 삼도 대도 얘는 지와 될 비를 제라 들지 공 산지서 사지어 봐 비비 통계 거도 핑고 서 들게 왔지 왜 타요 저거 그 첫째 그 요리 파티와 저 첫째 그 첫째 받을 왜 타요 저거 요리 pero la madre a te pa chen se wa la sa te ta ye yo le a te pa che bo yo se te wa me a te ta yo me pero te se ni chao lo lo be chao lo te to che ka se te ta xiao yo le pe te ta la sa mo te mo mo na de te ta chu ka sa wa ta ji mo da mo na de ja che go le mo na ta da za bo jo mo na ta 인증문쟁이 길 보철 쉬지 자주 같이 다 소리 탑재 그들이 소고요 뭐놈들 양다야도 쌈로 가래 손쌈로 때로 똥 때로 지는 이렇게 피바체 보요래 일단 뭐도 하자 같이 뭐 소남 저대 하고 뭐 소남 돌아놓으래 쌈재 끼적 받기를 대 먹어리요 쌈재 끼적 받기 지나 속 차들 쌈재 길이지 처럼 속 차라 가득 채다서 속 차 처럼 가득 채다 살로 단 거래. 우리 속 차를 살 때를 비워요. 가득 속 차대 삼지 기사대 소소로 가득 지고 차대래. 소소가 단지색. 네. 소소지 삼지 저게 소소 내가 돌이 타속 사지 고마도. 오, 나 때는 삼지 지금 보겠어. 우리 속 차를 가득 채서. 동이 발라 로모 정이 요리 tel라 pesate o me colgre pesate ya us na colgre to marriage so pesate esa yori colomni te pache mal como jate esa gaje lamto te del como chekke na ko gemo ke ta te ko te sa di lete lona ti tamchi samni je sosola pago sosola gaje cheda sa ta sabate ji hakore o nga pago gaje chesa no son bele este estaba hakono este mo haja kalchibori mo de te ta ta so na go jate hako samni ke te sa che te so na mres o te se da 차도 왕 말 납상 모하게 산제 탑제 공만을 쪽 산제 탑제 공만을 뚫다 산다 지지 쳐들 산제 탑제 소남저 가게 잡토다 오레스 오다 데서 산 하자 같이 나마기 탄디 모나들 안게 뺀데 같이 보고래 때 주로 탑제리 강 타타시오 망자선데 얘네한테 다시 오고도 왜 그럼 총총도 하고 오면도 놀랐다 너는 이는 이게 기사한테 소설 가른 쳐버리 대시라 다수는 거 어디 하고 요래 맞아 나 거기 쳐버서는 생고를 대박이나 생고만 대박이다 소설 가른 쳐버리 대박을 안 배겨래 안 배는 콩나발아 배우 콩나발 대박처리 사지들 대박도 라마 사지 좀 하고 제 생고만 고요리 또라는 배겨래 때는 이는 피도 같이 제라양들이 대 doktor랑 핑거리 하고 거리 때 주로 예방을 som능하게 또 봐지 쉬게 대신 자와인지 오 저서 사토 조康사치보 조조 사토 조康사치보 말이지 조康남고 조康성거리지 남남의 요거리지 사지 좀디 같이 와요 사지 좀 되게 감청을 잡아다가 많이 넣었지 강 지는서 받으라면 이놈서 됐다 니바 동거레스 오 사토도 가면 다바레스 맨날 다 가지 사야만 보는 니마들 밤줄 마차지 차도요레 오 내일 이는 생겨 니바들 뛰어 쳐 처음마지 바로 줘야요 말이지 대다로 싸움부터 될 소나무 저때 가사가리 너는 피지 그쪽 받지 소나무를 대다 버려 대 뭐지라서 뭐지지 되게 이게 다 문제봐 이 무항을 잡아내 저 되는 뭐 뭐는데 다시 뭐 이제 좀 와서 좀 고하는 되게 뭐 요래 이제 그다 차와는 있는 거서 이제 삼주는 될때 게다 쳐보는 걸로 요래 대다고 고도롱 주지 대다 하고 어떻게 롱주가 하고 대다 저가 내와다 하고 이제 기가 뭐죠 하고 대가는 동시바들 들이 초와 혁발 요래 들이 삼는지 공도 연거래 소남때 삼hin지 하고서 전에 들이랑 또 살이 셔가지고 소치고 삼바다 니게지도 또래 되게들이 다 삼단 이제 따올라서 나디 거니 대소네 삼hin지가 따한테 내가 털이서는 그거래 다도 사지에 살딱 코코도 그래서 대소들이 나디 토발송만 삼hin지 따올라서 좀 뭐야한테 뭐야까래 삼hin지래 삼hin지 따한테 가지는 대송선 될때 시합 연구요래 시합 이제 좀 이제 담배를 하지 이제 뭐 가래 제대로들 약고 착요래 이 공다 돼서 망송데 그냥 책 뭐만 라도 이만 지금도 참 망고 싶는 거라 네 다시 들으면
So my friends, we spoke about the cause of merit, and so there is there's two parts to it. There's like an aspect to the cause of merit. And there is a kind of a more subtle cause of merit and a more obvious, or like a coarse cause of merit. The more obvious or the coarse cause of merit is, for example, normal, as Buddhist practitioners, when we engage in any practice, we say that the practice must possess three excellences, three excellent parts, which is the beginning, the middle, and the end. So that is the more obvious course kind of aspect of merit. So, for example, then first in the beginning, we start with taking refuge, and then and the motivation of bodhicitta. And then we engage in the middle, we engage in the main practice without distraction. And at the end, we perfectly dedicate the practice. And it is said that if one practices in this way, then one's practice will become a great cause of merit. And it is said that if one perfectly dedicates the merit, then that merit will become inexhaustible. It will ever further increase. And then everything becomes a great merit. So then on a more subtle level, because when the mind, as you mentioned before, is filled with an altruistic intention, then even if you do maybe the most like disgusting activities, so to speak, like if you go and poop, then even that is a way to accumulate. Even there is some merit in there, if you understand how. Because, for example, there are some beings, some organisms, for example, that actually feed on the excrements. And that is also as a result of their past karma. So due to a past karmic connection that beings have, now one becomes the food and one becomes the eater of that food. And so actually it is said that if you in prison, we have also especially seen that when you leave poop sitting for a long time, actually it turns into bugs, into life forms. And then they feed on that. So anyways, if you know merit, then you know how to dedicate even that. If you don't know what merit actually is, then even you do something great, you won't actually recognize what you're doing. So you're still accumulating some small merit, of course, but it will not become some inexhaustible great accumulation of merit. As for example, like we mentioned before, some people say that these scientists are just, they only engage in worldly activity and they don't actually really know anything about reality and so on. And they create a lot of harm. But if you also think about it, there's always a benefit in whatever is created. For example, the airplanes or the ships and so on that they fabricate is also brings great benefit. And it is just that perhaps they don't understand that. They don't know that this actually, if that would be dedicated, it could become an immense cause of great merit. It's just they don't recognize that. And so it is the same with many of the different animals and life forms that do beneficial things, but they don't really recognize that they're beneficial. So it doesn't become a great merit that way. Jigten Sumgön had said, cause and effect is the natural manifestation of one's moment-to-moment thoughts. So, for example, when you look at the body of an animal, then you can really understand this statement. Like, why is it that they have such a body? And their form shows the workings of karma really precisely. And it's the same with scientists who fabricate ships and airplanes and so on. They create the causes to put things together, and then in the end they can take off and fly and so on. And so there are different kinds of animals that do similar beneficial things. For example, there's some animals who can't really move much, and then they also don't experience much pain, apparently. And then they're kind of still. It sounds kind of like a lizard or something. But then they're going around and they're eating all the bugs, all the small animals. And so then those like small kind of ants and so on, they accumulate all kinds of different things. They just hoard different things. And that hoarding kind of tendency is also a tendency of someone who possesses a lot of self-grasping and attachment. And in the end, actually, it said that if one has a lot of things, one one dies, one kind of merges with these things, and then one stays there. And so, anyways, there is maybe some other animal that comes to eat all the small animals then, and it even though at the time when they're actually being eaten, it does create them some suffering, some pain, but then also the one who eats them has their belly filled, and a lot of virtue is also created in that way, and so. In that way, the virtue that's created is that so the smaller ones have filled the belly of the one who ate them, so they feel satisfied, and then they also have purified negative karma, because all of this coming together and eating each other and so on is all due to a karmic connection. So only if a cause is created will a result ripen, and if a cause is created, the result will ripen precisely according to the cause. And so if one understands that with wisdom, one will not see this necessarily when, for example, someone eats another one and so on as a suffering or negative occurrence. So also this hoarding tendency that they have had is also a sign of having great greed and stinginess, and then they accumulate more and more, and that is also a negative karma that as a result becomes we encounter a karmic creditor with whom we then have to repay our karmic debt. So in brief, all of these difficulties arise from our karmic tendencies of attachment and anger and jealousy, selfishness, greed, stinginess. And so here mainly we are speaking about greed or stinginess. And so then if we understand that, we know that the one who is being eaten is also purifying their negative karma. of attachment and stinginess or greed from the past. But ultimately, even that one possesses Buddha nature. And so both the one who is eaten and the eater possess Buddha nature, but they have a karmic connection due to a debt that was accumulated in a previous lifetime. And when one sees it the way it is, one will think that it is a good thing. It purifies the negative karma. And eventually, when their mind becomes freed from such negative karma, they will all become Buddhas, and they will experience ultimate happiness, because that is the natural state of their mind. All the Buddhas have attained enlightenment really through sentient beings. All beings possess Buddha nature. It is only temporarily obscured by karma. But Buddha nature is beyond birth and death, and it is inherently virtuous. And therefore, whatever we do, there is a way to accumulate great merit. So somebody who possesses a very selfish mind and who doesn't understand karma or who doesn't believe in karma at all, for them, even if they accumulate merit, there's some benefit, but the benefit is very slight. So there is basically two kinds of dedication. There is the dedication that is poison or toxic, and the one that is completely pure or undefiled. And that has to do with whether or not there is grasping in the mind. So there is a dedication. When it is still somewhat defiled, we may dedicate, but there still is a dualistic thought of there is a dedicator, something to be dedicated, and a recipient of dedication. So there's an altruistic mind, but there still is a belief in a concrete reality. So that is a slightly defiled dedication. And then the pure, ultimate, undefiled dedication is one that is really powerful, that is free from the three spheres. So the dedication, dedicator, and recipient. And that is the ultimate, the most powerful dedication. And that dedication occurs naturally because there is no dualistic thinking in the mind. There is also no deliberate intent. But virtue arises naturally. So in this dedication prayer, Jigten Sungön, she said that I dedicate all the virtue accumulated by myself and others in samsara and nirvana throughout the 3 times, as well as the innate virtue. And so this innately present virtue, that refers to one's Buddha nature, the power of your own mind that is always there. That potential of virtue, that is your true nature. So, and that is the place, because that is what we really are, that is the place where we will always come back to. That is why it is also said, sentient beings cannot help but attain enlightenment. So some people think that, when you enter Buddhism, there's a lot of people who enter Buddhism and they practice the Dharma for many years and they have a lot of devotion. But then in the end, they get sick or they encounter many problems. And then they think that that is because I'm practicing Buddhism. So there is something wrong with the Buddhist practice. And that is really a wrong way of thinking about it. They think this way because all they can see is only this lifetime. They cannot see the karma that was accumulated in previous lifetimes. And then if they cannot see beyond that, they do not understand the real power of merit. So they develop wrong views. And it is said that wrong views are actually even more grave than the 5 deeds with immediate consequence. So often, even though we practice the Dharma, we do encounter difficulties. But why is that? It is because of past karma. We have created karmic debts in our previous lives, and that must be paid off or cleared away. And it is excellent, actually, to pay off this karmic debt in the body of a precious human body in this lifetime. And for example, when we look at someone like Lord Jigten Sumgön, he really is a Buddha in human form. He attained enlightenment in this life, in his very lifetime. But before that, he actually contracted the worst sickness that existed at that time in Tibet. That was leprosy. So he experienced the greatest suffering, but he overcame the suffering. He purified all negative karma and obscurations through the Buddhist view and attained enlightenment. So that is because he had realized the actual view of Buddhism. And that is now on a relative level, he recognized that no matter how much suffering there is, I am purifying my negative karma. It is necessary. There's also this one quote by the Vidyadhara Jigme Lingpa, and he says that all demons, our spirits, and disease are an encouragement to practice. All obstructors and harm doers are a stepping stone or an enhancement to my practice. And all wrong accusations and blame actually increase my practice. So when we are blamed, for example, or accused wrongly, what he means to say is do not get angry, but rather cultivate compassion and understand, recognize it to be karma from the past now ripening. So what arises, the wrong, being wrongly accused, for instance, is only an outer condition, but not the cause of your suffering. It is that the cause is one's own karma's negativities and obscurations. So one is responsible for the cause. And then the condition are the evil spirits, disease and suffering, or this disease and obstructors. And these are only outer, temporary conditions, but the cause has already been created by one's own mind in the past. It is created by one's own afflictions, which arise out of self-grasping. And this is why we now suffer. So when you know that you recognize suffering is my karma, it is the result of my own afflictive emotions and self-grasping. Even if others harm me, they are not to be blamed because they are only an outer condition. And the same is true for even the slightest moment of happiness. It also arises from love and compassion. Anything that you do with body and speech with a mind of love will lead to happiness. There's this one Tibetan proverb which is actually very important. It's a very good saying. We say that when I'm happy, it is the kindness of the jewels. So who are the jewels? The three jewels really ultimately are your own love and also your wisdom. Those who possess wisdom will also possess love and compassion. For example, the king of a country, if a king of a country possesses great wisdom, they will recognize the people of my country, they want to be happy. In order to be happy, I must give them freedom. I must give them whatever they need. And so those kings recognize that it's necessary to provide happiness for their subjects. And then there's other kings, other rulers who only focus on their own benefit and play politics and think that all that's important is that I don't lose my position. And in order to keep their position, they will do about anything. So those rulers don't really understand karma. If they would do whatever brings happiness to their people. So if you think about it in a large scale from between countries, for example, we can see how this really is the case. And how some, even though they do encounter some difficulties at times. So it is not that there will be no difficulties. We will still encounter difficulties, but in the end, we will attain victory because of the merit. And that is why it is important to recognize merit. And there are many different small ways to accumulate merit all the time. For example, when there are leftover foods, some scraps, then you can feed them to the animals. That is a cause of merit. You just have to recognize merit, and then through dedication increase the merit. And you do so through the power of your own mind. So there is the power of your own intention, that is your own love and compassion. You dedicate the merit for the sake of all sentient beings with great compassion for them. So that is the first power. If you have that first power, you connect to the second power, which is the power of all the Buddhas, great love and compassion, which is vast like an ocean. And then when these then merge, then how do you actually reach sentient beings? It is because of the power of Dharmadhatu, because all beings actually are one. All sentient beings possess Buddha nature. Also, the other week I mentioned this booklet by Khenpo Tsultrim Gyamtsom, and in there we have said all sentient beings in the 3 realms of samsaric existence, or in the 6 realms, possess Buddha nature. They are only obscured by a temporary stain, and that is self-grasping, and that leads to dualistic grasping. In order to dispel that stain, we must dedicate. And when the stain is removed, then on the basis, but fundamentally, all beings really are Buddhas, completely pure. So the Buddha himself, actually now speaking about this, we again come back exactly to what the Buddha himself had said. He said that all beings are actually Buddhas. They are only obscured by adventitious stains. So if you understand that, that is really the ultimate Buddhist view, then the mind becomes somewhat happy. Then you know that there's no need to have any doubts. We are already Buddhas. All we need to do is remove this temporary stain. That is the stain of self-grasping. And to remove that, we must cultivate love, and we must dedicate for all beings with great compassion. And so in that way, if we dedicate for others, again, what's most important is that state of mind of love. Of course, our outer activities, our material offerings and gifts are beneficial, but they only have a temporary benefit. And temporarily, one still will be born in the higher realms as a god or a human. For example, if one practices generosity, one is born as a human being, one will experience great wealth. If one practices the discipline or ethical discipline, one will obtain a precious human body. And if one practices patience, one will find harmonious friends, experience a long lifespan, and have a beautiful appearance. So these are the results of practicing generosity, discipline, and patience. In fact, in terms of discipline, it is said, if one practices a single nyingne practice, one creates the cause of being born as a precious human being. And that's also the reason why there are not so many human beings. If you look at how many human beings actually possess true, pure love, there are really just a few. And even those who have love, it is the very few who really have a pure, true love. For the most part, human beings are very afflicted. And the strongest affliction of human beings is the affliction of ignorance. And so that is also why there are many more animals than there are human beings, because ignorance leads to birth as an animal. So mainly the 3 poisons lead to birth in the 3 lower realms. So again, Jigten Sumgön had said, karma cause and effect is the natural manifestation of one's moment-to-moment thoughts. There's only one cause of suffering for all sentient beings, and that is self-grasping. And within self-grasping, all the 6 afflictions are complete. And again, also Jigten Sumgön said in the Gongchik that ignorance is what creates this forward motion of the 12 links of interdependence. Also we should ask Khenpo Tenzin about that. I'm asking questions. So first, we don't know. The first thing is that beings don't know that they are actually Buddhas. Then second, because they don't know that, they begin to see the self and other. And that leads to an attachment to the self and an aversion against the other. So their minds has become like an ice block, water that has frozen into ice overnight. So what do we need to melt that ice block? And we need love. It is that the root of the 84,000 Dharma teachings is bodhicitta. The Buddha also said in the Samadhi Raja Sutra, he said that I have taught the divisions of sutras, hundreds of thousands of divisions of sutras in the thousands of worlds, and while my words are many, they have a single meaning. If you cultivate this single meaning, you have accomplished all my teachings. So just trust in these words. And if you understand these words, then you will see no more contradiction between different religions and different lineages and so on. So the Dharma really is love and compassion. That's what it depends on. And if you have love and compassion, wisdom will arise. If wisdom arises, you will realize the nature of the mind. So in terms of dedication prayers, when 4 Sangha members come together, we have a community or a division of Sangha, and then the dedication prayers or whatever practice they engage in becomes much more powerful. And that is why we always, for example, at the Dharma Center, we practice the Changjok, the purification for the deceased. And now often people wonder that if you make these food offerings, for example, for the deceased, do they actually get it? Do they get all of that food? So on the one hand, not really, but on the other hand, there are actually some beings who are smell eaters, so they feed off the smell of the food that we are offering. And so then there are some who do not actually obtain the physical food, but they do get something through offering that food, and that is they receive your love. And that is really what will make their minds feel happy and will fill their belly, so they will feel satisfied. So what they really get through your offering is your love. And that is really what, for example, a bardo consciousness needs. Because in the bardo, they are blown around by their karma, and they have no support. They have no physical support. They possess the 4 named aggregates. So in that state, if we dedicate for those who have deceased with a mind of love, they will receive our mind of love. And that is why the love is what's most important, because that is what they will actually receive. And if they receive your love, then because their minds are filled with self-grasping, love will melt their self-grasping. And when there's no more self-grasping, then they become Buddhas. So if they think about Amitabha, then they become Amitabha. So it's not that there is some other destination or Pure Land where they need to go or be brought to, but they become that Pure Land and that Buddha right here and now, the moment self-grasping collapses. So that is how we should understand the dedication of our roots of virtue. And it occurs through the twofold truth. On the relative level, it occurs through love and compassion, immeasurable love, pure love. And as a result of our pure love, those who have passed away, for example, they will understand the ultimate truth, that they are all Buddhas. They will see the Dharmakaya. They will attain enlightenment. They attain enlightenment when all dualistic thinking has collapsed. Then they become either they dissolve into the Dharmakaya, or they arise as a Sambhogakaya in a Sambhogakaya Pure Land. There are different levels of liberation depending on the level of one's own realization. So some enter into the state of the Nirmanakaya, and some the Sambhogakaya, and some the Dharmakaya. The Nirmanakayas, for instance, will appear to benefit sentient beings. But in any case, Buddha emanations will continuously manifest to benefit sentient beings. So regarding this attainment of enlightenment, actually some people also have asked me questions about, and they said they had some hesitations, thinking that if I attain enlightenment, do I really want that? Because if I attain enlightenment, then I have to benefit all these beings, and that is quite difficult. So maybe that's how we think right now, but actually, once you attain enlightenment, a Buddha does not see suffering the way we see it now. They don't see it as something miserable, because they have realized that samsara is like an illusion. And so therefore, in one of the prayers it is said, because the Buddhas see suffering as illusory, even if they go to hell, there is no fear. They can walk through the fire pits and through the kind of ground, the grounds of razor blades. And that is because they have conquered the Lord of Death. They have seen that all is an illusion, and they are not overwhelmed by anything that arises. So that is also called the illusion-like samadhi, actually, one of the samadhis that we develop according to the Buddhist view. So in any case, if we understand dedication, even if you just recite a single mani mantra, you have to dedicate it. So think of sentient beings in an instant, think of their suffering, and then recognize that the cause of their suffering is self-grasping. And the one medicine that cures 100 illnesses is love. So with love, then wisdom arises, and you can recognize what sentient beings need. And so then the mind becomes immeasurable. And so often for example, when somebody has passed away, sometimes we just think about the person that we love. For example, if you have a friend that you love so much and they have passed away, then you can just think about them because you love them so much. But that is a very limited state of mind, of kind of love. And in this way, we are much further away from the Buddha Amitabha when we call upon his blessings. When you give rise to immeasurable love for all beings and then call upon the Buddha Amitabha for his compassionate blessings, then you actually are very close, much closer to the deceased, as if you would only think about them, because the mind is very broad and pervasive. For example, if there is a relation between the guru and the disciple, that the disciple has great devotion to the guru and guru loves their disciple, it is because of that mind-to-mind relationship that the moment you think of them, they're very immediately, instantly, you are together, you're very close. But if one of them is lacking, for example, even if there is great faith or devotion, if there's no love, then there is no closeness, because the mind is like a block of ice. And so in other words, the more heat you generate, the more the ice block will melt. And so then whatever you do becomes actually a Dharma activity. In this way, through dedication prayer, all activities, whether they are mundane activities or Dharma activities, all become vast ways of accumulating merit. And that's actually also explained in the King of Aspiration prayers for excellent conduct, that's why I also insisted that Garchen Rinpoche teaches on that. Because within that prayer, for example, it really explains without any bias between different views and lineages, it shares the true power of aspiration prayer. So therefore, I advise you to again and again read this prayer and really think about the meaning of each line. It would be very beneficial. Also, personally, I found it very beneficial. So, and the thing is that most people do not understand that merit is to be created anywhere, and that is why so much merit goes wasted. So therefore, when you recognize it, then if you just develop one moment of love, dedicate that love immediately. So if this moment of love arises, for example, you feel compassion for an animal that you're feeding. So then you're feeding the animal, but then you should think that who is actually being kind? Are you kind to the animal, or is the animal kind to you? So you might naturally think that, well, I'm kind to the animal because I'm the one feeding the animal, but actually it's the other way around. The animal really is kind to you. Because of the animal, you were able to develop love and accumulate great merit by feeding them. And that destroys your self-grasping. And so that is actually the biggest cause of happiness. And temporarily, it is the cause of birth in the higher realms and ultimately the cause of attaining enlightenment. So when you recognize that, you will think that, oh, today, that animal was actually kind to me, because through the animal, I was able to cultivate love. I was able to accumulate merit. So that animal is very kind to me. Or for example, a beggar asking for money on the streets. If you give them some money, again, who is being kind? Are you kind to the beggar, or is the beggar kind to you? So you might think that, of course, I'm kind to the beggar. I'm the one giving him money. But actually, he's very kind to you, because through him, you were able to practice generosity. And it means a lot to them, because to a normal person, even if you give them $100, it doesn't mean much to them. But if you just give $1 single to a beggar, it makes them so happy. And they will smile and laugh and be so happy about it. So that is so you bring great joy to them out of love and compassion. In return, you accumulate great merit. So actually, the beggar has been extremely kind to you. So if you think that it's my kindness, then that's a really mistaken way of thinking. So this is how the dedication prayers are really very important. So again, first we have to identify, recognize what is the cause of merit. So the cause of merit is a mind of love and compassion. At the moment thoughts of anger or jealousy and so on arise, immediately cultivate a mind of love and compassion, because otherwise, if they remain, even if you do something virtuous, the merit will become spoiled. But if you dedicate it without allowing that virtue to be interrupted by a negative thought, it is like you're adding your merit into the bag of the Buddhas, which is just like in the beginning, this sea of love and compassion, this ocean of love and compassion. So I'm just an old man, explaining it in these simple terms, but I really find that this seeing it like this ocean of love and compassion is the best example and very important. And so again, it's very important that we understand how to accumulate merit. So my friends, I explained that to you now as well as I could. Maybe it went on a little bit for quite a long time, so I apologize, but that was necessary to say. It was an important thing to mention, because so many people don't actually recognize merit. So few people recognize merit. And there is merit to be accumulated everywhere. So in brief, merit arises from compassion. And that is actually someone who causes you to cultivate compassion is actually very kind to you. And if you recognize that, you have really understood the quality of merit. So if you when we dedicate our merit, actually it is also said that we even dedicate our merit not just for beings, but also according to the prayer. We also, in the prayer for excellent conduct, we also dedicate for all the Buddhas, their enlightened activities. And that is because even though they have already attained enlightenment, they still require our dedications because they also need merit in order to accomplish the benefit of sentient beings. And so when we cultivate faith and devotion to them, we are not doing that for them, but actually having devotion is our own greatest benefit. So we are doing ourselves really a service by cultivating devotion. And so again, the greatest benefit arises from your wish to benefit others. And that actually does not just exist in the Buddhist tradition, also it exists in other religions. For example, I once saw a Christian book by Jesus, and in that book, Jesus said, do not store your wealth in an earthly treasure house, because it has no substance, but rather store your wealth in the treasure house of heaven, or of the sky. And it is quite similar to what the Buddha had said, because the Buddha had said, whatever you own is not yours, and whatever you give to others, that is yours. And that's quite similar. They are both speaking about generosity. And the earthly treasure house, the material world, is impermanent. Even if you have millions of dollars, that one day, for example, if the economy crashes, you may lose everything. But the heavenly kind of treasure house, if you store your merit there, then that cannot be taken from you in all future lifetimes until you attain enlightenment. So again, there is merit to be accumulated everywhere, all over the place. It is just that we need to recognize it. For example, if you are with a loving friend and love arises it for a moment, immediately dedicate that merit, which is just like putting your money safely in a bank so it cannot be lost. That is why dedication is so important, and I spent some time speaking on it. So even if you just create a slight virtue, for example, you pee, it can become a great accumulation of merit. And as we mentioned before, it is when an actual feeling arises. So the feeling has to arise within your mind. And then that must be dedicated. And so what is that feeling? It is that feeling of love and compassion. So love and compassion is actually the merit that needs to be dedicated. For example, if you have a loving friend that has passed away, and you think of them with love and compassion, even that will be of great benefit. So that is what you want to bring with you, because nothing else will stay with you. After you have passed away, there's nothing that will remain. All that you will have is your mind of love. That's why also that is the first verse mentioned in the Fivefold Path of Mahamudra in a different song, where it says that love and compassion is like a horse, like a racehorse, a steed. And that horse of love and compassion will bring you to the temporary states of birth in the higher realms, and it will bring you to the state of enlightenment ultimately. So the beginning of the Fivefold Path, it begins with love and compassion, and it ends with love and compassion, because the dedication, in essence, also is that motivation of love and compassion. If you ride the horse of love and compassion, wisdom will arise. And wisdom and compassion in union will lead you to enlightenment. No matter what you do, whether you practice the Holy Dharma or engage in mundane activity, everything will become a great cause of merit. So again, I apologize for keeping it long, but these words on recognizing merit have been really very important.
Then Rogu to the Sajan, your top short, that's check that already. They Madonna, then it's Sajan, the yes. They say you can't make a television. There is a Toda Sancho, now cut our conduct to the job to our children. They say, you must keep some cheese around, you can do your race. That's check it. Katamro meet to you. Oh, Rio, my daddy, me, while I think you can't young marriage. Tanto Tobacco got down, said, oh, damn. Tanto Tamsi told him his own dog, his own half or something. The Tanto is a tongue to your age. With Sada change your voice, or three. Dodgy town, or the dodgy sa, Togger, Dada. She did a Gilbert Teletary, Dodgy Sa Lebre. Did you morality of the Yalaman? Yalama, say Lama gave it in Guvatachi Bogore, Nagamatri, and sent the Mandavate Gores, the Monanteri, that's the story. You wrote about us direction.
And so then in the prayer, let's see. So what does it say?
Namyang Darami, Namyang Madati. To me, what you are, Namyang Darami, Namyang Darami, Sabat, Johnson Sabat.
So it says here, let me never be separated, let me never be apart. Was it from the gurus in all future lives? And so what we never should be apart is loving kindness and compassion, mindfulness. And in fact, this is really the essence wherein the entire fivefold path is included. And it says, then may I swiftly, then we skip a little bit here, may I soon attain awakening for the benefit of beings. So the words are quite straightforward, but so if you never separate from love, then you will quickly attain the state of enlightenment. And so then it speaks about the may I undertake compassionate activities and so forth. So continuously, so then these activities will naturally arise continuously. As we mentioned before, on the ultimate bodhicitta is like the sky, like space, and the relative bodhicitta is like an ocean that continues to pervade and exist and will continuously benefit sentient beings naturally. And so then, that show the final path of Mahamudra equal to every being in the universe, assisting them in reaching the great might of Vajradhara without hindrance. And so the ultimate state of Vajradhara, of Mahamudra, is attained if one realizes the meaning of non-duality, and there's no more dualistic grasping. So here it mentions the expedient meaning, teachings of the expedient meaning, and the teachings of the definitive or ultimate meaning. There's two kinds of teachings, and the teachings of the like definitive, or say the teachings of the interpretative or provisional meaning are all included within the ultimate teachings of the definitive meaning. So once you understand the definitive or ultimate, you will also understand all the other provisional teachings. And so then may I swiftly attain the state of Vajradhara. When you sustain mindfulness and love for beings, if you never separate from these, you will reach the awakened state of the Buddha Vajradhara. So then these gurus may never be separated from the authentic gurus. The guru, as we have said, on the outer level, we have the the spiritual master that is necessary, but on the inner level, the inner guru is your own mind. So you must never be separated from your inner guru. So that is the aspiration prayer, Dharma friends, in Tashitele. Rinpoche read, may bodhicitta arise where it has not yet arisen, may it not decline where it has arisen, and may it ever further increase.